The rain hit the windows of Carter Reed's penthouse office like tiny bullets, but he barely noticed. His eyes were fixed on the woman standing in his doorway, soaked from head to toe, holding a soggy package in her trembling hands. Her uniform was drenched, the delivery company logo barely visible on her shirt. He felt that familiar twist of annoyance in his gut. Women like her were always after something: his money, his connections, his power. He'd seen it all before. "You're dripping all over my Italian marble," he said coldly, not bothering to get up from behind his imposing glass desk. The office was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the persistent tapping of rain against the windows. "Just leave it on the table by the door." The woman didn't move. Instead, she took a step forward, leaving wet footprints on his pristine floor. "I need your signature, sir." "Company policy." Carter rolled his eyes. He checked his watch. A limited edition timepiece worth more than what this woman probably made in a year. "Fine. Bring it here." She walked toward him, her shoulders squared despite her soaked appearance. As she approached, he noticed something different about her. No batting eyelashes, no flirtatious smile, no obvious attempt to impress him. Just tired eyes and a determined set to her jaw. "You're late," he said sharply, taking the electronic signature pad from her. "This package was supposed to be here 3 hours ago." "I apologize, Mr. Reed," she replied, her voice steady despite her shivering. "There was an accident on Highway 18 that shut down 2 lanes. I tried calling your office but no one picked up." Carter scoffed. Excuses. He was surrounded by people who made excuses all day long. He scribbled his signature and thrust the pad back at her. "Next time, find a different route. I don't pay premium delivery fees to receive packages late." The woman took the pad and nodded, but then did something unexpected. She looked him directly in the eyes. "With all due respect, Mr. Reed, sometimes things happen that are beyond our control. I did my best." For a brief moment, Carter was speechless. People didn't talk to him that way, especially not service workers who needed his business. Before he could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it. His CFO was calling. "Important business." "Just go," he waved her away dismissively. "And try to be on time next time." The woman turned and walked away, her back straight despite her drenched state. As she reached the door, Carter noticed something fall from her pocket. A small, handmade paper heart, clearly crafted by a child's hands. It landed silently on his expensive floor. "Wait," he called out, but she was already gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click. Carter Reed stared at the paper heart on his floor. For some reason, he couldn't just leave it there to be cleaned up by the evening janitorial staff. He found himself walking over to pick it up. The heart was made of red construction paper with "I love you, Mommy" written in crooked, childish handwriting. Something about it made his own heart twinge uncomfortably. He walked to the window and looked down at the street below. Through the rain, he could see the delivery woman running to her truck, pulling her thin jacket tighter around herself. For a split second he felt something unfamiliar: regret? Shame? He quickly pushed the feeling away. He didn't get to where he was by worrying about other people's feelings. Carter placed the paper heart on his desk and turned back to his work. But for the rest of the afternoon, he found his eyes drifting to that simple token of love, wondering about the woman who had stood up to him, and the child who loved her enough to craft such a gift. Little did he know, this rain-soaked encounter was about to change his life forever. Layla Thompson rushed back to her delivery van, blinking away tears of frustration that mixed with the raindrops on her face. The encounter with the arrogant billionaire was just the cherry on top of an already terrible day. Her ancient van had broken down twice, she'd been yelled at by 3 different customers about late deliveries, and now she was completely soaked. Starting the engine, she checked the time, 5:45 p.m. She still had to pick up her daughter from the after-school program by 6 o'clock, or she'd have to pay late fees she couldn't afford. Layla took a deep breath and pulled away from the curb, trying to calm her racing heart. "Just one more day," she whispered to herself. "Just keep going one more day." That had been her mantra for the past 5 years, ever since her husband had died unexpectedly, leaving her alone with their 2-year-old daughter, Zoe. One more day had turned into weeks, then months, then years of working multiple jobs, skipping meals so Zoe could eat, and falling into bed exhausted only to do it all again the next day. The rain was coming down harder now, making it difficult to see through the windshield even with the wipers on full speed. Layla navigated carefully through the downtown streets, thinking about Zoe. Today was her art show at school and Layla had promised to be there. Another promise she would have to break. When she finally pulled up to Bright Futures Academy, Layla checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her hair was a mess, her uniform still damp, and there were dark circles under her eyes. But she put on a smile as she ran into the building. Zoe was sitting alone on a bench in the hallway, her small backpack and art portfolio clutched to her chest. When she saw Layla, her face lit up. "Mommy? You made it." Layla scooped her daughter into a tight hug. "Of course I did, baby. I'm so sorry I couldn't be at your art show." Zoe pulled back, her bright eyes serious. "It's okay. Ms. Jenkins took pictures. And look, I won a ribbon." She proudly showed Layla a blue ribbon attached to her folder. Layla felt her heart swell with pride and ache with regret simultaneously. "That's amazing, Zoe. I knew you would win. You're the best artist in the whole world." As they walked back to the van, Zoe chattering excitedly about her day, Layla realized something was missing. She patted her pockets frantically. "Zoe, did you see the heart you made me? The one I keep in my pocket for good luck." Zoe shook her head. "Maybe it fell out when you were working?" Layla's heart sank. That little paper heart had been her talisman for 2 years, ever since Zoe had made it for Mother's Day. She kept it with her always. "I must have lost it at that last delivery," she said softly. "At the big glass building. Can we go back and look for it?" Zoe asked hopefully. Layla shook her head, thinking of the cold man in the expensive suit who couldn't be bothered to look her in the eye. "No, honey. I don't think we can. But that's okay. You can make me another one, right?" "It won't be the same," Zoe said seriously. "That one had special love magic in it." As they drove home through the rain to their small apartment on the outskirts of the city, Layla couldn't help but think of the paper heart, probably swept up and thrown away by now in the billionaire's pristine office. Just another thing she'd lost along the way. She had no way of knowing that the heart was sitting on Carter Reed's desk, or that he found himself staring at it long after the workday had ended, feeling something shift inside him that he couldn't quite understand. Carter Reed was not a man who made mistakes. At least, that's what he told himself as he sat in his corner office the next morning, the small paper heart still on his desk where he'd left it the previous day. He should have thrown it away. He should have given it to his assistant to return to the delivery company. Instead, he'd left it there, a splash of red against the sleek white surface of his desk. His phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. "Your 9 a.m. is here. The architect for the new resort project." Carter sent back a quick, "Send him in," and tucked the paper heart into his desk drawer. No need for anyone to see it and get the wrong idea. He was Carter Reed, CEO of Reed Enterprises, not some sentimental fool. The meeting went well, as most of his meetings did. Carter had built his empire from nothing, turning a small inheritance into a global real estate and technology conglomerate worth billions. He had a reputation for being ruthless but fair, demanding but rewarding. He expected perfection because he gave perfection. After the architect left, Carter found himself opening the drawer and looking at the paper heart again. What was it about this simple craft project that kept drawing his attention? Perhaps it was because it was so out of place in his carefully curated world. Or perhaps it was because of the woman who had dropped it. The delivery driver who had looked him in the eye and stood her ground. On impulse, he pressed the intercom button. "Janet, get me the name of the delivery company that brought the package yesterday afternoon. The one with the legal documents from Mitchell & Sons." A few minutes later, his assistant's voice came through the speaker. "Elite Express Couriers, sir. Would you like me to call them?" Carter hesitated. What exactly was he planning to do? Yes. Find out who the delivery person was. Female, African American, probably in her early 30s. "I need to return something she left behind." "Of course, Mr. Reed. I'll take care of it right away." Carter leaned back in his chair, wondering what had come over him. He had meetings to attend, decisions to make, a company to run. Why was he wasting time trying to return a paper heart to a delivery driver he'd been rude to? Because it was the right thing to do, a small voice inside him said. And because you owe her an apology. Carter Reed didn't apologize to people. People apologized to him. But the memory of the woman's dignified response to his rudeness wouldn't leave him alone. Before he could reconsider, Janet's voice came through the intercom again. "Sir, I spoke with Elite Express. The driver's name is Layla Thompson. She's on shift today until 5 p.m. They gave me her delivery schedule. She'll be dropping packages at the Riverside Office Park around 1 p.m. Carter checked his watch. 11:30, he had a lunch meeting with potential investors at noon, but it was only a few blocks from Riverside. "Clear my 1 p.m. meeting. Reschedule it for tomorrow." "Yes, sir." "May I ask why?" "No, you may not," Carter replied, then softened his tone. "It's a personal matter, Janet. Nothing to worry about." As he prepared for his lunch meeting, Carter tried to convince himself that he was just being efficient. Returning the heart was a simple courtesy. It had nothing to do with the way the woman, Layla Thompson, had stood up to him, or the tired determination in her eyes. Nothing at all. Layla was having a better day. The sun was shining, her van was running smoothly, and she was actually ahead of schedule for once. She pulled into the Riverside office park and checked her delivery manifest. 3 packages, all going to different offices in the complex. Simple. She was walking back to her van after the second delivery when she stopped short. There, leaning against a sleek black sports car that probably cost more than she'd make in 10 years, was the man from yesterday. The rude billionaire in the expensive suit. For a moment, Layla considered turning around and walking the other way. But she wasn't a coward and she had a job to do. She squared her shoulders and continued toward her van, which was parked just a few spaces away from his car. "Miss Thompson," he called out as she approached. Layla stopped, surprised that he knew her name. "Mr. Reed. You remember me?" He seemed almost pleased by this. "Hard to forget," she said simply. She didn't add, "the rudest customer of the day." She didn't need to. To her surprise, Carter Reed looked uncomfortable. He straightened up from his casual pose against the car and adjusted his tie. "I believe you dropped something in my office yesterday." From inside his suit jacket, he produced the paper heart Zoe had made. Layla's eyes widened in surprise. "You kept it? And brought it back to me?" Carter shrugged, trying to look nonchalant. "It seemed important. Personal." Layla took the heart carefully as if it might disintegrate in her hands. "It is. My daughter made it for me 2 years ago. I carry it for good luck." She looked up at him, genuine gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you. Really. This means a lot to me." Carter felt something strange happen in his chest. A warm feeling that was both uncomfortable and pleasant at the same time. He wasn't used to genuine gratitude. Most people in his life wanted something from him. The simple thank you felt different. "I also wanted to apologize for my behavior yesterday," he said stiffly. The words felt foreign in his mouth. "I was unnecessarily rude." Layla tilted her head, studying him. "Yes, you were. But apology accepted." An awkward silence fell between them. Carter found himself noticing details about her he'd missed yesterday. The intelligence in her eyes, the way the sunlight brought out warm undertones in her dark skin, the slight dimple in her left cheek. "I should get back to work," Layla said finally, tucking the heart safely into her pocket. "I have deliveries to make." "Of course," Carter nodded, stepping aside. "I won't keep you." Layla walked to her van and opened the door. Before getting in, she turned back to him. "Mr. Reed?" "Yes." Most people wouldn't have bothered. "So, thank you again." She climbed into her van and drove away, leaving Carter standing in the parking lot, feeling strangely like he'd just missed something important. He had returned the heart, apologized, and should now feel satisfied with himself for doing the right thing. Case closed. Time to get back to his empire building. So why did he feel like this conversation wasn't finished? As he got into his car, his phone rang. Janet, his assistant. "Sir, Ms. Patterson from the investment group called. They're very interested in the downtown project but want to move quickly. She's asking if you can meet her for dinner tonight to discuss details." Melissa Patterson was beautiful, sophisticated, and came from one of the wealthiest families in the state. She was exactly the type of woman Carter usually dated. Someone from his world who understood the game. "Tell her I'll meet her at Le Cirque at 8, he said automatically. As he drove back to his office, Carter found himself thinking not of his dinner plans with the elegant Miss Patterson, but of a paper heart and the hard-working woman who treasured it. Layla's small apartment was filled with the smell of spaghetti and the sound of Zoe's laughter. This was her favorite time of day. Dinner with her daughter, hearing about school, art class, and the dramatic social lives of 7-year-olds. And then Tyler said he could jump higher than the monkey bars, but Ms. Jenkins said no one was allowed to try, Zoe explained, twirling pasta around her fork with intense concentration. "Ms. Jenkins is right," Layla said, passing her daughter a napkin. "That sounds dangerous." "But Mommy, guess what else happened today? The most amazing thing." "What, baby?" Zoe's eyes lit up. "We're going on a field trip to the Science Museum next month. And they have real dinosaur bones and a space exhibit and everything." Layla felt a familiar twist in her stomach. Field trips meant permission slips and fees. Money she didn't have. But looking at Zoe's excited face, she knew she'd find a way. Maybe she could pick up an extra shift on the weekend. "That sounds wonderful, Zoe. You'll have such a good time." "The permission slip says parents can come too," Zoe said hopefully. Ms. Jenkins needs helpers. Layla's heart sank. Taking time off meant no pay, which wasn't an option right now. I'll have to see, sweetie. You know mommy has to work. Zoe's smile dimmed slightly, but she nodded. I know. It's okay. That night, after Zoe was asleep, Layla sat at her small kitchen table with bills spread out before her. The rent was due next week. The electric bill had a past due notice. Zoe needed new shoes. And now there was the field trip fee. Layla pulled out her delivery schedule for the next day and studied it. If she skipped lunch and pushed herself, maybe she could fit in a few extra deliveries. Elite Express paid per delivery, not by the hour. More packages meant more money. As she made her calculations, her hand brushed against her pocket where she'd put the paper heart. She pulled it out and smiled, still amazed that the billionaire had returned it to her. He'd even apologized, which had to be a rare occurrence for someone like him. Carter Reed. She'd looked him up after their second encounter. Founder and CEO of Reed Enterprises. Worth billions. Featured regularly in business magazines and tabloids alike. Usually with a different gorgeous woman on his arm at some glamorous event. A man from a completely different world than hers. Layla tucked the heart back into her pocket and returned to her bills. She had no time for daydreaming about handsome billionaires, even ones who occasionally showed unexpected kindness. She had real problems to solve and a daughter who was counting on her. Across town, Carter sat at a table in Le Cirque, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. Across from him, Melissa Patterson was talking animatedly about her recent trip to Paris. She was objectively beautiful, blonde hair styled perfectly, makeup flawless, wearing a dress that probably cost more than some people's monthly rent. The gallery opening was divine, she was saying. Jean-Pierre is really revolutionizing the modern art scene. You should have come with me, Carter. You would have loved it. Carter nodded, making appropriate comments while his mind wandered. There was a time when this kind of evening would have held his full attention. The expensive wine, the beautiful woman, the business opportunities. Now he found himself oddly detached. Carter? Are you listening? Melissa's perfectly manicured hand reached across the table to touch his. Of course, he lied smoothly. Jean-Pierre's gallery. Revolutionary. Melissa smiled, satisfied. So, about the investment opportunity. Daddy thinks it's brilliant. He's willing to put in $20 million, but he wants assurances about the timeline. This caught Carter's attention. The downtown development project was important to him, not just for the profit potential, but because it included plans for affordable housing and a community center. Elements that his board had questioned but that he had insisted on including. The timeline is aggressive but achievable, he said, slipping into business mode. We can break ground in 3 months if the permits come through as expected. As Melissa launched into questions about profit margins and tax benefits, Carter found his thoughts drifting again. Not to the project but to Layla Thompson. What would she think of this restaurant, with its $200 entrees and $500 bottles of wine? What would she think of him, spending more on one dinner than she probably made in a week? Carter, really? What is wrong with you tonight? Melissa's voice had an edge to it now. You seem a million miles away. Sorry, he said, focusing on her again. Just a lot on my mind with this project. Melissa's irritation softened. You work too hard. You need to learn to relax. Her foot brushed against his under the table, her intentions clear. Maybe I can help with that after dinner? Any other night, Carter might have accepted the invitation. Melissa was attractive, available, and understood the rules of their world. No commitments, no complications. But tonight the prospect left him cold. I appreciate the offer, he said carefully, but I have an early meeting tomorrow. Another time, perhaps. Melissa's eyes narrowed slightly, but her smile remained fixed. Of course. Your work ethic is one of the things I admire about you. They finished dinner with polite conversation about mutual acquaintances and upcoming social events. Carter paid the exorbitant bill without a second glance and escorted Melissa to her car. I'll have my assistant call your father's office to set up a formal meeting about the investment, he said as they stood beside her Mercedes convertible. Perfect, Melissa replied, leaning in to kiss him lightly on the lips. And do try to find some time to relax, Carter. All work and no play. He watched her drive away, then got into his own car. Instead of heading toward his penthouse, he found himself driving aimlessly through the city. The night was clear and warm, the streets quieter than during the day but still alive with activity. Almost without conscious decision, he found himself in a neighborhood he rarely visited, a working-class area on the outskirts of downtown. The buildings here were older, the cars parked along the street more modest. People sat on front steps or small balconies enjoying the evening air. Carter slowed his car, feeling conspicuous in the expensive sports vehicle. What was he doing here? What was he looking for? He didn't know, but something about seeing how the rest of the world lived, the world Layla Thompson inhabited, felt important. His phone rang, displaying his assistant's name. Work never stopped, even at 10 p.m. "Reed," he answered. "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you so late, but Mr. Tanaka from Tokyo is on the line. He says it's urgent regarding the tech acquisition." Carter sighed. "Put him through." As he took the call and made a U-turn to head back to his office, Carter caught a glimpse of a small playground in a neighborhood park. A memory surfaced, Layla mentioning her daughter, the one who had made the paper heart. Did they come to parks like this? What was her daughter's name? What did Layla do when she wasn't delivering packages to rude billionaires? Questions he had no business asking about a woman he barely knew. A woman who was nothing like the people in his world. A woman who shouldn't matter to him at all. Yet as he drove back to his gleaming office tower to deal with the latest business crisis, Carter Reed couldn't shake the feeling that something important had happened when Layla Thompson looked him in the eye and accepted his apology. Something that might change everything if he let it. The Elite Cafe was Layla's favorite spot to grab lunch on her delivery route. The small diner was nothing fancy, just good food at reasonable prices and friendly service. Most importantly, they didn't mind if she parked her delivery van in their lot while she ate a quick meal. "The usual Layla?" Joe, the owner, called out as she entered. "Yes, please," she replied, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "But make it to go. I'm running behind today." Joe nodded and shouted the order to the kitchen. "Turkey sandwich on wheat, no mayo, extra pickles." While she waited, Layla checked her phone. She had 13 more deliveries to make before picking up Zoe from school. If traffic cooperated, she might just make it on time. "Rough day?" Joe asked, sliding a glass of water toward her. "The usual," Layla smiled tiredly. "Van broke down again this morning. Spent 2 hours getting it fixed." "That old thing needs to be retired," Joe said, shaking his head. "You work too hard, girl." "Tell me about it," Layla sighed. "But unless someone wants to give me a new van for free, I'm stuck with Old Faithful and all her problems." The bell above the door jingled, and Layla glanced over automatically. She nearly fell off her stool in shock. Standing in the doorway, looking completely out of place in his expensive suit, was Carter Reed. Their eyes met, and for a moment both seemed equally surprised. Then Carter's face shifted into a carefully neutral expression as he walked toward the counter. "Miss Thompson," he nodded politely. "We meet again." "Mr. Reed," Layla replied, still stunned. "What are you doing here? This doesn't exactly seem like your usual lunch spot." "I had a meeting nearby," he said, taking the empty stool next to her. "My assistant recommended this place. Said they have the best turkey sandwiches in the city." Layla raised an eyebrow. "Your assistant has good taste. But I find it hard to believe you take lunch recommendations from your staff." Carter's mouth quirked in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "I'm not always the snob you think I am, Miss Thompson." "Order up," called the cook, sliding a paper bag across the counter to Joe. "Your lunch, Layla," Joe said, handing her the bag. He looked curiously between her and Carter. "Friend of yours?" "No," Layla said quickly. "Just someone I deliver to occasionally." "Carter Reed," Carter introduced himself, extending a hand to Joe. "And I'd like whatever she's having." Joe looked impressed as he shook Carter's hand. "Coming right up, Mr. Reed. Any friend of Layla's is welcome here." "We're not," Layla began, but Joe had already moved away to place the order. She turned to Carter. "Seriously, what are you doing here? Elite Cafe is at least 10 blocks from your office." Carter shrugged. "Maybe I wanted a change of scenery." Layla checked her watch and stood up. "Well, enjoy your sandwich. I have to get back to work." "Wait," Carter said, and something in his voice made her pause. "How's your daughter? The one who made the heart?" The question surprised Layla. "She's fine. Happy to have her lucky charm back." Carter nodded. "Good. That's good." An awkward silence fell between them. Layla shifted her weight, aware that she should leave but oddly reluctant. "Her name is Zoe," she found herself saying. "She's 7. "Zoe?" Carter repeated. "That's a beautiful name." "Thank you." Layla glanced at her watch again. "I really do have to go. Enjoy slumming it, Mr. Reed." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her again. "Layla," he said, using her first name for the first time. "I wasn't just in the neighborhood. I came looking for you." She turned back, confused. "Why would you do that?" Carter looked uncomfortable as if he wasn't sure himself. I don't know exactly. I just wanted to see you again. Layla stared at him, trying to make sense of this confession. Was this some kind of game to him? Rich man slumming it with the working class? Look, Mr. Reed. Carter. Please. Carter, she amended. I don't know what this is, but I'm not interested in being some kind of charity project or walk on the wild side for a bored billionaire. I have a daughter who depends on me and a job I need to keep. Carter's expression hardened slightly. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Layla challenged. Before he could answer, Joe returned with another paper bag. One turkey sandwich, no mayo, extra pickles. On the house, Mr. Reed. I can pay, Carter began, reaching for his wallet. Nope, Joe insisted. First-time customers eat free. House policy. Layla knew for a fact that no such policy existed, but she said nothing as Carter reluctantly accepted the free sandwich. Thank you, he said to Joe. I appreciate the hospitality. When Joe moved away, Carter turned back to Layla. Would you have dinner with me? Tonight or whenever you're free. Layla blinked in surprise. Dinner? Like a date? Yes, Carter said firmly. Like a date. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Carter seemed taken aback. Why does anyone ask someone to dinner? Because I find you interesting and would like to get to know you better. Layla shook her head. People like you don't date people like me. People like... What does that mean? You know exactly what it means, Layla said evenly. You're Carter Reed, billionaire CEO. I'm a single mom working as a delivery driver to make ends meet. We're from different worlds. Maybe that's why I'm interested, Carter said quietly. My world gets tiresome sometimes. Layla felt a flash of irritation. So I'm what then? A refreshing change of pace? A taste of how the other half lives. Carter ran a hand through his hair in frustration. That's not what I meant. You're twisting my words. I'm being realistic, Layla countered. And I don't have time for games. I have deliveries to make. She turned to go, but Carter reached out and gently touched her arm. Please. Just dinner. One meal. If you hate it, I'll never bother you again. Layla looked at him, trying to read his intentions. His face, usually so confident and controlled, showed uncertainty. It made him seem more human, less like the cold billionaire she'd first met. I can't tonight, she said finally. I have Zoe. Tomorrow then? Layla hesitated. This was crazy. She should say no. But something in his eyes made her nod. Fine. Tomorrow. But I pick the place and I pay for myself. Relief washed over Carter's face. Deal. Wherever you want. Layla pulled out her phone. Give me your number. I'll text you the details. As they exchanged numbers, Layla couldn't believe what she was doing. Dating wasn't on her radar. She hadn't been on a proper date since before her husband died. And now she was agreeing to have dinner with a billionaire who had been incredibly rude to her just days ago? I really do have to go, she said, tucking her phone away. I'm already behind schedule. Of course, Carter nodded. Tomorrow then. As Layla walked out to her van, she felt like she was in some kind of alternate reality. Carter Reed wanted to have dinner with her. Carter Reed had tracked her down at her regular lunch spot to ask her out. It made no sense. Men like him dated models and heiresses, not delivery drivers with second-hand vans and overdue electric bills. As she started the engine, she saw Carter emerge from the cafe. He looked up, caught her watching, and gave her a small nod. Something in her stomach fluttered in response. This is a mistake, she told herself firmly as she pulled away. A huge mistake. But as she drove to her next delivery, she couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring. Carter watched Layla's van disappear around the corner. What had just happened? He'd come looking for her on impulse, not even sure what he would say when he found her. And now they had a date? He took a bite of his sandwich as he walked back to his car. Joe had been right, it was excellent. Simple but perfectly prepared. Much like Layla herself, he thought, then shook his head at the fanciful comparison. His phone buzzed. A text from Janet. Mr. Tanaka's team sent over the revised contracts. Shall I have legal review them? Reality intruding. Carter typed a quick yes and got into his car. He had meetings all afternoon, decisions to make, a company to run. He didn't have time to be chasing after delivery drivers and eating sandwiches in diners. Yet as he drove back to his office, Carter felt lighter than he had in months. Tomorrow night, he would have dinner with Layla Thompson. A woman who looked him in the eye without fear or agenda. A woman who refused to be impressed by his wealth or status. A woman unlike any he had ever dated before. His phone rang again, another business call. Carter answered it, slipping back into CEO mode. But in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that something important had begun today. Something that might change everything. Layla stood in front of her closet, feeling ridiculous. She had exactly 3 nice outfits to choose from, and none of them seemed right for a date with a billionaire. Not that she was trying to impress him, she wasn't. But she also didn't want to look completely out of place. "Mommy, why are you trying on all your clothes?" Zoe asked from the doorway of Layla's small bedroom. "I'm going to have dinner with a friend tomorrow," Layla explained, holding up a simple black dress she hadn't worn in years. "And I don't know what to wear." "Is it a date?" Zoe asked, her eyes widening with interest. "No," Layla said automatically, then sighed. "Well, kind of. But it's not serious." "Is he nice?" Zoe asked, climbing onto Layla's bed. "Is he handsome?" Layla thought about Carter Reed, his cold demeanor when they'd first met, his unexpected kindness in returning the heart, his strangely vulnerable expression when he'd asked her to dinner. "He can be nice," she said carefully. "When he wants to be. And yes, I suppose he's handsome." "Will I get to meet him?" "No," Layla said quickly. "It's just dinner, Zoe. It doesn't mean anything." Zoe flopped back on the bed with a dramatic sigh. "Grown-ups are so boring. In my stories, the princess always meets the prince right away." Layla smiled despite herself. "Well, he's definitely not a prince. And I'm certainly not a princess." "You're prettier than any princess," Zoe declared loyally. "You should wear the blue dress. It matches your eyes." Layla looked at the dress in question. A simple wrap dress in deep blue that her sister had given her for her birthday last year. She'd only worn it once to a job interview she didn't get. "You think so?" Zoe nodded with all the confidence of a 7-year-old fashion expert. "Blue is the prettiest color. And you can wear your sparkly earrings." "My sparkly earrings, huh?" Layla laughed. "You've got this all figured out. Will Mrs. Garcia watch me tomorrow night?" Zoe asked, referring to their elderly neighbor who often babysat. "Yes, I already asked her. And I won't be late, promise." Zoe looked at her mother intently. "It's okay if you are. I'm a big girl now. I can stay up late sometimes." Layla sat down beside her daughter and pulled her into a hug. "When did you get so grown up?" "I've always been grown up," Zoe said matter-of-factly. "I just keep getting taller." As they laughed together, Layla pushed away her doubts about the next evening. It was just dinner. One meal with a man who probably wouldn't even call her afterward. No big deal. So why did it feel like she was standing on the edge of something both exciting and dangerous? Carter couldn't remember the last time he'd been nervous about a date. Yet here he was, changing his tie for the 3rd time, oddly anxious about meeting Layla Thompson for dinner. She had texted him the name of the restaurant, Billionaire, a small Italian place in a middle-class neighborhood. Not his usual 5-star establishment, but that was fine. This wasn't a usual date. His phone buzzed with a text from her, running a few minutes late. "Babysitter issue. Sorry." Carter texted back, "No problem. Take your time." He arrived at the restaurant early and was pleasantly surprised. The place was small but charming, with checkered tablecloths and old black and white photos of Italy on the walls. The hostess raised an eyebrow at his expensive suit but led him to a table in the corner without comment. Carter ordered water and declined the wine list. He wanted to be clear-headed tonight. As he waited, he found himself genuinely curious about what Layla would be like outside of their brief encounters. What did she enjoy? What made her laugh? How had she ended up as a single mother working as a delivery driver? The door to the restaurant opened and Layla walked in. Carter felt his breath catch slightly. She was wearing a simple blue dress that highlighted her figure and brought out the warmth in her brown skin. Her hair, usually pulled back for work, fell in soft curls around her shoulders. She spotted him and walked over. Carter stood to greet her, suddenly aware that the typical air-kiss greeting he used for business dinners would be inappropriate. "Hi," he said simply, pulling out her chair. "Hi," she replied, looking a bit nervous as she sat down. "Sorry I'm late. My regular babysitter canceled at the last minute." "No problem," Carter assured her. "I hope you found someone reliable?" "My neighbor, Mrs. Garcia. She's wonderful with Zoe." Layla settled in, placing her napkin in her lap. "So, this is weird, right? It's not just me?" Carter laughed, relieved by her directness. "Definitely weird. But maybe in a good way." "We'll see," Layla said, a small smile playing at her lips. "I still don't understand why you asked me out." Would you believe me if I said I don't entirely understand it either? Carter replied honestly. There's just something about you. The way you stood up to me that first day. The way you didn't seem impressed or intimidated by who I am. Should I be intimidated? Layla asked, raising an eyebrow. Most people are. I don't have time to be intimidated by rich people, Layla said matter-of-factly. I'm too busy trying to pay my bills. The waiter arrived to take their orders. Layla chose a simple pasta dish, while Carter selected the special. When the waiter asked about wine, Layla shook her head. Just water for me. I'm driving. Same, Carter nodded. When the waiter left, an awkward silence fell between them. Carter realized that his usual date conversation topics, discussing mutual acquaintances, upcoming charity galas, or business ventures, wouldn't work here. Tell me about Zoe, he said finally. You mentioned she's 7? Layla's face softened immediately. Yes. She's in 2nd grade. Smart as a whip and way too perceptive for her age. She loves art, drawing, painting, anything creative. Like making paper hearts, Carter said with a smile. Exactly. She makes them for everyone she cares about. Says they're filled with love magic. Love magic. Her words, Layla laughed. But I believe it. That little paper heart has gotten me through some tough days. Carter nodded, thinking of the heart that had somehow led him here. What about her father? If you don't mind me asking. Layla's expression grew serious. Michael died 5 years ago. Car accident. Zoe was only 2. I'm sorry, Carter said sincerely. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. Still is, sometimes. Layla took a sip of water. But we manage. Zoe doesn't really remember him, which breaks my heart sometimes. I try to keep his memory alive for her, photos, stories, that kind of thing. Carter felt a wave of admiration for the woman sitting across from him. To lose her husband and raise a child alone while working a physically demanding job, it took a strength he wasn't sure he possessed. What about you? Layla asked, changing the subject. The tabloids say you've never been married. Is that true? Carter was surprised she knew anything about his personal life. You've read about me? I googled you after you returned the heart, Layla admitted. Seemed prudent to know who I was dealing with. Smart, Carter nodded. And yes, never married. Never even close, really. Why not? Seems like you'd have women lining up. They line up for Carter Reed, Billionaire CEO, he said with a touch of bitterness. Not for Carter Reed, the person. Is there a difference? Layla asked, genuinely curious. Carter considered the question. I'd like to think so. But it's been a long time since anyone has wanted to find out. Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. As they began to eat, Carter found himself relaxing. There was something refreshing about Layla's straightforward manner. This is excellent, he said, tasting his meal. How did you find this place? Michael and I used to come here, Layla said with a small smile. It was our favorite date night spot. Affordable but nice, and the food is always good. I'm honored you'd share it with me, Carter said, realizing the significance of her choice. Layla shrugged. It seemed fitting. Neutral territory. As they continued their meal, the conversation flowed more easily. Carter told her about growing up as the son of a small business owner, working in his father's hardware store, and using a modest inheritance to start his first real estate venture. Most people assume I was born rich, he explained. I wasn't. Comfortable, yes. But not wealthy. I built most of this myself. That's impressive, Layla acknowledged. But it doesn't explain why you're such a jerk to delivery drivers. Carter winced. Fair point. Success changed me, and not always for the better. When everyone says yes to you for years, you start to expect it. Well, I'm not afraid to say no, Layla said with a hint of challenge in her voice. I'm counting on that, Carter replied softly. Their eyes met across the table, and something shifted in the air between them. Carter found himself noticing the fullness of her lips, the way her earrings caught the light when she moved her head, the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she breathed. Layla broke eye contact first, glancing at her watch. I should probably get going soon. I promised Zoe I wouldn't be too late. Of course, Carter nodded, signaling for the check. When it arrived, Layla reached for her purse. I said I'd pay for myself, she reminded him. You picked the place, I get the bill, Carter countered. That was our deal, remember? That was definitely not our deal, Layla protested, but Carter had already handed his credit card to the waiter. Please. It's just dinner. Layla looked like she wanted to argue but finally nodded. Fine. But I'm not going to make a habit of letting billionaires buy me pasta. Noted, Carter smiled. They walked outside together, the night air warm and fragrant with the scent of nearby flowering trees. Carter found himself reluctant for the evening to end. "Can I walk you to your car?" he asked. "Sure," Layla said. "It's just down the block." They walked in companionable silence. Carter resisted the urge to take her hand, aware that they were still practically strangers despite the unexpected connection he felt. When they reached her car, the same delivery van she used for work, Layla turned to face him. "This was surprisingly nice," she admitted. "Thank you for dinner." "Thank you for saying yes," Carter replied. "I'd like to see you again if you're open to it." Layla hesitated. "I don't know, Carter. This still feels like a mistake. We're just so different." "Maybe different is exactly what we both need right now," he suggested. "Just think about it?" Layla nodded. "I will." For a moment they stood facing each other, the street lamp casting a soft glow over them. Carter wanted to kiss her but sensed it was too soon. Instead, he leaned forward and gently kissed her cheek. "Good night, Layla Thompson." "Good night, Carter Reed," she replied, her voice slightly breathless. As she got into her van and drove away, Carter stood watching until her taillights disappeared around a corner. He felt oddly light, as if something heavy he'd been carrying had been set down. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably business as always. But for once he didn't immediately check it. Instead, he walked slowly back to his car, replaying the evening in his mind, already looking forward to seeing her again. She would let him. "Mr. Reed, the board members are waiting in the conference room," Janet reminded him as Carter walked into his office the next morning. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," he replied, setting down his coffee. "Any urgent messages?" "Just the usual," Janet said, following him into his office with a tablet. "Mr. Davidson called again about the resort project. He's getting impatient." Carter nodded absently, his mind elsewhere. It had been 3 days since his dinner with Layla, and he hadn't heard from her. He'd sent one text the day after. "I enjoyed last night. Hope to see you again soon." But received no response. "Also," Janet continued, "Miss Patterson called. Twice. She wanted to know if you're attending the charity gala this weekend." Carter suppressed a grimace. He'd forgotten about the gala, a black tie event for his mother's favorite charity. His mother would be upset if he didn't show, but the prospect of spending the evening with Melissa and the rest of his usual social circle felt strangely unappealing. "Tell her I'll be there," he said finally. Duty was duty. "Alone?" Janet asked, eyebrow raised slightly. She'd been his assistant long enough to know his habits. He usually brought a date to these functions. "Yes," Carter said firmly. "Alone." Janet made a note on her tablet. "One more thing. Elite Express called. There was a problem with yesterday's delivery. They're sending someone to pick up the wrong package and deliver the correct one this afternoon." Carter's head snapped up. "Elite Express? Did they say who the driver would be?" Janet looked surprised by his sudden interest. "No, sir. Just that someone would be here around 3 p.m. "Thank you, Janet," Carter said, trying to sound casual. "That's all for now." After Janet left, Carter sat at his desk, staring at his phone. Should he call Elite Express and request Layla specifically? No, that would be awkward for her. But the possibility of seeing her again made his heart beat faster. He shook his head, annoyed with himself. Carter Reed didn't get flustered over women. Women got flustered over him. Yet here he was, acting like a teenager with a crush. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reed? The board is waiting." "On my way," he replied, straightening his tie and setting aside thoughts of Layla Thompson. He had a company to run. Layla stared at the delivery manifest with dismay. Reed Enterprises. Of course. The universe had a sick sense of humor. For 3 days she'd been avoiding thinking about Carter Reed and their dinner together. It had been nice, surprisingly nice, but also confusing and potentially complicated. She'd almost texted him back several times but always stopped herself. What was the point? They lived in different worlds. A few more dates wouldn't change that fundamental reality. "Thompson, you're taking the Reed Enterprises pickup and redelivery," her supervisor said, interrupting her thoughts. "Package went out wrong yesterday." Layla tried to hide her panic. "Can't someone else take it? I've got a full schedule already." Her supervisor gave her an odd look. "It's on your route. And aren't you the one who usually handles their deliveries anyway?" Yes, but..." "Then it's settled. Reed Enterprises, 3 p.m. Don't be late, they're an important client." Layla sighed in defeat. "Fine." As she loaded her van with the day's packages, including the correct one for Reed Enterprises, Layla tried to prepare herself for possibly seeing Carter again. What would she say? Should she apologize for not responding to his text? Should she act professionally and pretend their date never happened? By the time 3 p.m. rolled around, her stomach was in knots. She parked in the visitor section of the Reed Enterprises building and took a deep breath before grabbing the package and heading inside. The lobby was impressive, all glass and steel and expensive art. The receptionist looked up as Layla approached. Elite Express, Layla said, keeping her voice professional. I'm here to pick up a package that was delivered incorrectly and drop off the correct one. The receptionist nodded. Yes, we were expecting you. Please sign in and I'll let Mr. Reed's office know you're here. Layla felt her heart skip. Actually, I can just leave this with you and take the wrong package. No need to bother Mr. Reed. I'm afraid all package exchanges need to be logged by the recipient department, the receptionist explained. It's company policy. Please have a seat and someone will be down shortly. Layla sat on one of the sleek leather couches, nervously smoothing her uniform. Part of her hoped that Carter would be in a meeting or out of the office entirely. Another part of her, a part she was trying to ignore, hoped to see him again. The elevator dinged and Layla looked up expectantly. But it wasn't Carter who emerged. It was an elegant woman in a designer suit that screamed executive assistant. Elite Express? The woman asked, approaching Layla. Yes. Layla stood holding out the package. I have the correct delivery and need to pick up the one from yesterday. Of course. I'm Janet, Mr. Reed's assistant. The woman's eyes were appraising as she took Layla's measure. You're Layla Thompson, correct? Layla blinked in surprise. Yes. How did you know? Janet's expression gave nothing away. Mr. Reed mentioned you might be handling our deliveries. Please come with me. As they rode the elevator up to the executive floor, Layla felt increasingly uncomfortable. Had Carter talked about her to his assistant? What had he said? Mr. Reed is currently in a meeting, Janet explained as they exited the elevator. But he asked to be notified when you arrived. That's not necessary, Layla said quickly. I'm just here to exchange packages. Janet led her to a large office with Carter's name on the door. Please wait here. The incorrect package is on the desk. I'll let Mr. Reed know you're here. Before Layla could protest further, Janet departed, leaving her alone in Carter's office. It was just as she remembered, spacious and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city. The furniture was expensive but tasteful, the art on the walls original and likely worth small fortunes. Layla spotted the package on the desk and quickly moved to retrieve it. She should leave the correct package and go before Carter finished his meeting. This wasn't the place for another awkward encounter. But as she turned to leave, the office door opened and Carter stood there, slightly out of breath as if he'd hurried from his meeting. Layla, he said, a smile spreading across his face. I was hoping it would be you. Mr. Reed, she replied formally, aware that they were in his workplace. I've exchanged the packages. I should get going. Carter's smile faltered at her professional tone. Please stay a minute. I've been wanting to talk to you. I'm working, Layla reminded him. And you're in a meeting. They can wait, Carter said, closing the door behind him. Why didn't you return my text? Layla sighed. Because I don't think this is a good idea, Carter. Whatever this is between us. You felt it too then? You took a step closer. That connection at dinner? It doesn't matter what I felt, Layla said, clutching the wrong package to her chest like a shield. We're from different worlds. This can only end badly. You don't know that, Carter argued. Why not give it a chance? Layla gestured around the opulent office. Look at where you work, where you live. Look at who you are. Now look at me, a delivery driver in a uniform living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't a fairy tale, Carter. It's real life. Before Carter could respond, there was a knock at the door, and it opened to reveal a striking blonde woman in an expensive dress. She stopped short at the sight of Layla. Carter, the board is getting restless, she said, her eyes moving between them with obvious curiosity. Oh, I didn't realize you were busy. Melissa, Carter said, his tone neutral. This is Ms. Thompson from Elite Express. She was just delivering a package. Melissa's expression cleared. I see. Well, don't let us keep you, Ms. Thompson. I'm sure you have other deliveries to make. The dismissal was polite but clear. Layla nodded, grateful for the interruption. Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Sorry for the mix-up with the packages. She moved toward the door, but Carter stepped in front of her. Layla, he said quietly. Please call me. Layla glanced at Melissa, who was watching them with narrowed eyes. Goodbye, Mr. Reed. She brushed past him and walked quickly to the elevator, feeling Melissa's gaze burning into her back. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of Carter looking after her, his expression unreadable. Once safely back in her van, Layla let out a long breath. This was exactly why getting involved with someone like Carter Reed was a bad idea. His world was full of beautiful women in designer clothes who belonged in his expensive office. Women who didn't have to pick up their children from school or worry about paying the electric bill. Women who weren't her. Who was that? Melissa asked as soon as Layla had left. I told you. A delivery driver, Carter replied, walking back to his desk. Melissa folded her arms. A delivery driver you called by her first name and asked to call you. I don't see how that's any of your business, Melissa. It's not, she conceded. I'm just curious. She seemed familiar with you. Carter met her gaze coolly. The board is waiting, you said? Melissa held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. Yes. They're getting impatient. Shall we? As they walked back to the conference room, Carter knew he should be focusing on the meeting ahead. But his mind kept returning to Layla's words. This isn't a fairy tale, Carter. It's real life. Maybe she was right. Maybe the differences between them were too great. But something in him refused to accept that. He'd felt more alive during their simple dinner at Bellinotte than he had in years of attending exclusive restaurants with women like Melissa. Carter? Melissa's voice broke into his thoughts. They had reached the conference room door. Sorry, he said, focusing on the present. Let's go. But as he entered the room full of board members in expensive suits, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let Layla Thompson dismiss what was happening between them so easily. Different worlds or not, he wanted to see where this could go. He just had to figure out how to make her give it a chance. Mommy, someone's at the door. Zoe called out as Layla was folding laundry in her bedroom. Layla checked the time, 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. She wasn't expecting anyone. Coming, baby. She made her way to the front door of their small apartment, patting down her messy hair. She was still in her pajamas, an old t-shirt and sweatpants, and hadn't planned on getting dressed until later. Saturdays were her one day to relax a bit. When she opened the door, she froze in shock. Carter Reed was standing there, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt, holding what appeared to be a picnic basket. Good morning, he said, looking slightly uncomfortable but determined. What are you doing here? Layla asked, bewildered. How do you even know where I live? Carter had the grace to look embarrassed. I may have looked up your address in the Elite Express delivery records. I know that's crossing a line, but you didn't return my calls. Because I didn't want to talk to you, Layla pointed out, keeping her voice low so Zoe wouldn't hear. That wasn't an invitation to show up at my home. Who is it, Mommy? Zoe appeared beside Layla, curious eyes taking in the stranger at their door. Carter's expression softened as he looked at the little girl. You must be Zoe. I'm Carter, a friend of your mom's. You're tall, Zoe observed matter-of-factly. And you have a basket. Is it a present? Sort of, Carter replied, shifting his attention back to Layla. I thought maybe you and your mom might like to go on a picnic today. If she's not too mad at me for showing up uninvited. Layla was torn between anger at his presumption and a reluctant admiration for his boldness. Before she could respond, Zoe was bouncing with excitement. A picnic? Can we go, Mommy? Please? We never go on picnics. Zoe, go brush your teeth while I talk to Mr. Reed, okay? Layla said gently. Once Zoe had disappeared down the hallway, Layla stepped outside, pulling the door mostly closed behind her. You have some nerve, she said, keeping her voice low but intense. Showing up at my home without warning, using my daughter to manipulate me. That wasn't my intention, Carter interrupted. I just wanted to see you again. You wouldn't answer my calls or texts. Did it occur to you that there was a reason for that? Carter ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Yes, but I think you're wrong. About us being too different. About this not being worth trying. Layla crossed her arms over her chest, suddenly very aware that she was standing in her pajamas in the hallway of her modest apartment building. You don't even know me, Carter. I know enough to want to know more, he said simply. I know you're strong and independent and love your daughter more than anything. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you make me feel different, better. Layla felt her resolve weakening. There was an earnestness in his eyes that seemed genuine. I can't just drop everything because you decided to show up, she said, but her tone had softened. Zoe and I have plans today. It wasn't entirely true. Their plans consisted of laundry, grocery shopping, and maybe a movie at home if they had time. What kind of plans? Carter asked, a small smile playing at his lips as if he knew she was making excuses. Before Layla could answer, the door opened wider, and Zoe reappeared, now with brushed teeth and wearing a mismatched outfit she'd clearly picked out herself. "I'm ready for the picnic," she announced triumphantly. Layla closed her eyes briefly. "Zoe, I didn't say we were going." "But Mommy, it's a picnic," Zoe said as if that explained everything. "With a real picnic basket and everything." Layla looked from her daughter's excited face to Carter's hopeful one. She was outnumbered. "Fine," she sighed. "Give me 15 minutes to get ready." Zoe cheered while Carter's face broke into a genuine smile. "Take your time. We've got all day." "You can come in and wait," Layla said reluctantly, opening the door wider. "But don't get any ideas. I'm still mad at you." Carter entered the apartment, looking around with interest but not judgment. The place was small but clean and homey, with Zoe's artwork adorning the walls and a collection of well-loved furniture. "You can sit on the couch," Zoe instructed Carter seriously. "I'll show you my drawings while we wait for Mommy." As Layla headed to her bedroom to change, she heard Zoe chattering away to Carter, showing him her art portfolio with all the confidence of a gallery owner. To his credit, Carter seemed genuinely interested, asking questions and complimenting her work. Layla closed her bedroom door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. What was she doing? Letting Carter read into her home, into her life, into Zoe's life. It was risky and probably foolish. But as she heard Zoe's delighted laugh in response to something Carter said, she couldn't help the small smile that curved her lips. It had been a long time since anyone had shown interest in them, in her as a woman, not just as Zoe's mom or as a delivery driver. She quickly changed into jeans and a simple blouse, ran a brush through her hair and applied minimal makeup. When she emerged, she found Carter sitting on the floor with Zoe, helping her draw what appeared to be a unicorn. "You're not very good at drawing," Zoe was saying with brutal honesty. Carter laughed. "No, I'm not. Maybe you could teach me sometime." "I could," Zoe agreed seriously. "You need lots of practice." Carter looked up as Layla entered the room, and something in his expression made her heart beat faster. He looked at her as if she were beautiful. Not just attractive but truly beautiful, despite her simple clothes and minimal makeup. "Ready?" he asked, standing up. "As I'll ever be," Layla replied, picking up her purse. "Where exactly are we going for this picnic?" "There's a park not far from here," Carter said. "Unless you have a better suggestion?" "Westlake Park has ducks," Zoe suggested eagerly. "And a playground." "Westlake Park it is," Carter agreed. "My car is outside." Layla hesitated. "We can take my van. It has Zoe's booster seat." "I brought one," Carter said, then quickly added, "I asked Janet, my assistant, what a 7-year-old would need for a car ride. She did some research." Layla raised an eyebrow, impressed despite herself at his thoroughness. "You really planned this, didn't you?" "I really wanted to see you again," he replied simply. The drive to the park was filled with Zoe's chatter from the back seat. She asked Carter dozens of questions. Did he like ice cream? Yes. Could he swim? Yes. Did he know how to do cartwheels? No, but he'd love to learn. Did he have any pets? No, but he'd had a dog as a child. Layla watched him answering patiently, engaging with Zoe's curiosity with a warmth she hadn't expected from the cold businessman she'd first met. It was yet another side to Carter Reed, and it was appealing. At the park, Carter carried the picnic basket while Zoe ran ahead to the playground. Layla walked beside him, still not entirely sure how she felt about this surprise outing. "I am sorry for showing up unannounced," Carter said quietly as they walked. "But I'm not sorry to be here with you." Layla sighed. It was presumptuous. "I preferred determined," Carter smiled. "But point taken. Next time I'll call first." "Next time?" "I'm optimistic," he shrugged. They found a spot under a large oak tree with a good view of the playground where Zoe was already making friends with other children. Carter spread out a blanket, an actual picnic blanket, Layla noted with amusement, and began unpacking the basket. Layla's eyes widened as he pulled out containers of fresh fruit, sandwiches, pasta salad, cookies, and even sparkling water and juice boxes. "Did you make all this yourself?" she asked skeptically. Carter laughed. "No. But I did pick everything out personally. Janet just helped with the execution." "Of course you have staff to prepare your picnics," Layla said, but there was no bite to her words. She was actually touched by the effort. They called Zoe over to eat, and for a while the three of them enjoyed the food and the beautiful day. Zoe kept them entertained with stories from school, and Carter seemed genuinely interested in every word. After eating, Zoe ran back to the playground, leaving them alone on the blanket. "She's amazing," Carter said, watching Zoe climb the jungle gym. "So smart and confident." "She is," Layla agreed, a mother's pride evident in her voice. "She makes everything worth it." "Everything?" "The long hours, the constant struggle to make ends meet, the exhaustion," Layla explained. "On the worst days when I feel like I can't take another step, I look at her and find the strength to keep going." Carter was quiet for a moment. "I admire that," he said finally. "That kind of love and dedication. I'm not sure I've ever loved anything that deeply." "Not even your company?" Layla asked. "That's different. The company is an achievement, a creation. But it doesn't love me back." There was a vulnerability in his words that caught Layla off guard. For all his wealth and power, Carter Reed seemed lonely in a way she hadn't expected. "Is that why you're here?" she asked softly. "Looking for something that loves you back?" Carter turned to meet her gaze. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just looking for something real in a world that often feels artificial." Layla found herself drawn into his eyes, which were surprisingly expressive for a man who kept such tight control in his professional life. There was warmth there and hope, and a question she wasn't sure she was ready to answer. "Mommy, watch me," Zoe called from the top of the slide, breaking the moment. Layla turned and waved, calling out encouragement as Zoe slid down, laughing all the way. When she looked back at Carter, he was smiling, but the intensity was still there in his eyes. "I'm not asking for promises, Layla," he said quietly. "Just a chance. A real chance to see if this could be something." Layla sighed. "It's complicated, Carter. I have Zoe to think about. I can't just—" "I know," he nodded. "And I respect that. She comes first. She should come first. But that doesn't mean there can't be room for something else too." Before Layla could respond, Zoe came running back, flopping dramatically onto the blanket. "I'm tired. And thirsty." Carter handed her a juice box with a smile. "Playgrounds are hard work, huh?" "The hardest," Zoe agreed solemnly, taking a long drink. "Can we feed the ducks now? Did you bring duck food?" Layla asked, expecting the answer to be no. Carter reached into the picnic basket and pulled out a small paper bag. "Cracked corn and oats. I read that bread isn't good for ducks, but this is healthier for them." Layla blinked in surprise. "You really did think of everything." "I tried," he said simply. They packed up the remains of their picnic and walked to the pond where several ducks were swimming lazily in the afternoon sun. Zoe took the bag from Carter and carefully began tossing small handfuls of the mixture into the water, squealing with delight as the ducks swam over. Standing slightly apart from Zoe, Carter gently touched Layla's arm. "I meant what I said earlier. I'm not trying to rush anything or complicate your life. I just want a chance." Layla watched her daughter, so happy and carefree in this moment. Maybe it was selfish, but a part of her wanted this too, not just for Zoe but for herself. A chance to be more than just a struggling single mom. A chance to feel like a woman again, desired and pursued. "Okay," she said finally, turning to face him. "A chance. But we take it slow and Zoe comes first. Always." Carter's face lit up with a genuine smile that transformed his usually serious features. "Agreed. On all counts." For the rest of the afternoon, they explored the park, with Zoe leading the way, showing Carter all her favorite spots. He listened attentively, asked questions, and even let her teach him how to skip rocks on the pond, though he was terrible at it, much to Zoe's amusement. By the time they returned to Layla's apartment, Zoe had decided that Carter was her new friend and made him promise to come back soon to see her latest art project. "I will," he promised, kneeling down to her level. "If that's okay with your mom." Zoe looked up at Layla expectantly. "Can he, Mommy? Please?" Looking at the two of them, her daughter's hopeful face and Carter's equally hopeful eyes, Layla felt both fear and something close to happiness. "We'll see," she said, which Zoe correctly interpreted as a yes and responded with a cheer. After Zoe went inside to wash up, Carter lingered at the door. "Thank you for today," he said. "It was the best Saturday I've had in I can't remember how long." "It was nice," Layla admitted. "Unexpected but nice." "Can I call you tomorrow?" he asked. Layla nodded. "Yes. But remember, slow." "Slow," Carter agreed. Then, just as he had after their dinner, he leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek. "Good night, Layla." As she watched him walk away, Layla touched her cheek where his lips had been. What was she getting herself into? There were 100 reasons why this was a bad idea. But for the first time in years she was allowing herself to hope for something more than just survival. And hope, dangerous as it was, felt surprisingly good. Carter checked his reflection in the mirror one last time. The charity gala was in full swing downstairs in the grand ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel, but he'd stepped away for a moment of quiet. His phone buzzed with a text from Layla. Zoe just showed me her math test. Plus, celebrating with ice cream. How's your fancy party? A smile spread across his face as he typed a reply. Tell her congratulations from me. Party is as expected. Wish I was having ice cream with you two instead. It had been 3 weeks since their picnic in the park. 3 weeks of careful dating. Dinner at modest restaurants, walks in the park, even a movie with Zoe one rainy afternoon. Carter had respected Layla's request to take things slow, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He pocketed his phone and straightened his bow tie. Time to get back to the gala. His mother would be looking for him. As he descended the grand staircase, he spotted her immediately, Eleanor Reed, elegant in a designer gown, holding court among her society friends. She waved him over as soon as she saw him. Carter, darling, where have you been hiding? She asked, kissing his cheek. Melissa has been looking everywhere for you. Carter suppressed a sigh. His mother had been trying to match him with Melissa Patterson for years, convinced they were perfect for each other. I had a business call, Mother. Nothing important. Well, now that you're back, I want to introduce you to the Andersons. They've just donated $1 million to the foundation. As Carter followed his mother, making polite conversation and shaking hands, he felt oddly disconnected from it all. This had been his world for so long, charity galas, business networking, social climbing. But now it all seemed hollow somehow. There you are, Melissa's voice came from behind him. She looked stunning in a form-fitting red gown, her blonde hair artfully arranged. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me. Just making the rounds, Carter replied smoothly. You look lovely tonight, Melissa. Thank you, she smiled, taking his arm possessively. I heard the most interesting rumor about you recently. Carter raised an eyebrow. Oh. Apparently you've been seen around town with a delivery driver? Of all things. Melissa's tone was light, but there was an edge to her words. Slumming it, Carter? How charitable. Carter felt a surge of anger but kept his expression neutral. I wasn't aware my personal life was the subject of gossip. Everything you do is subject to gossip, Melissa reminded him. You're Carter Reed. So is it true? Before Carter could respond, his mother rejoined them. What are you two whispering about? Melissa, you look divine in that dress. Thank you, Mrs. Reed, Melissa smiled warmly. I was just asking Carter about his new friend. The delivery woman? Eleanor's smile froze slightly. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. It's nothing, Mother, Carter said firmly, giving Melissa a warning look. Just someone I've been spending some time with. Well, as long as it's nothing serious, Eleanor said with a small laugh. Now both of you come with me. The Wilsons just arrived and they're considering a major donation. As they moved through the crowd, Carter felt his phone buzz again. Another text from Layla. Zoe wants to know if you'll come to her school art show next week. No pressure. Carter smiled to himself. A school art show sounded infinitely more appealing than this glittering but empty affair. He typed back, wouldn't miss it. Just tell me when and where. Carter, do pay attention, his mother chided as they approached an elderly couple. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, you remember my son, Carter? The rest of the evening passed in a blur of social niceties and business conversations. Carter played his part perfectly, charming, attentive, the successful businessman and generous donor. But his mind kept drifting to Layla and Zoe, wondering what they were doing, wishing he was with them instead. When he finally escaped around midnight, declining Melissa's not-so-subtle invitation to join her for a nightcap, Carter felt exhausted. Not physically but emotionally. The contrast between his public life and the simple, genuine moments he'd been sharing with Layla was becoming increasingly stark. As he drove home, he called Layla, hoping she was still awake. Hey, she answered, her voice warm. How was the gala? Exhausting, he admitted. How was the ice cream celebration? Messy, Layla laughed. Zoe got chocolate all over her face and somehow in her hair. But she was so proud of that test. She should be. She works hard. Carter had seen firsthand how diligently Zoe approached her schoolwork, even at 7. She's excited that you might come to her art show, Layla said. But I told her you're very busy and might not be able to make it. I'll be there, Carter said firmly. I'll move meetings if I have to. There was a pause before Layla spoke again. Carter, are you sure about all this? About us? What do you mean? I saw pictures from your gala online, she said quietly. You looked like you belonged there. with all those beautiful people in their expensive clothes. It made me realize again how different our worlds are. Carter sighed. That world, it's not as real as it looks, Layla. It's all surface, all performance. What I have with you and Zoe, that feels real. But it's still your world, she pointed out. Those people, that lifestyle. I don't fit into that picture, Carter. Maybe I don't want to fit into that picture anymore, he said, surprising himself with the admission. Maybe I'm ready for something different. There was another pause, longer this time. It's not that simple and you know it, Layla finally said. You can't just walk away from who you are. No, Carter agreed. But I can choose who I want to be with. And I choose you, Layla. If you'll have me. He heard her soft intake of breath. Let's talk tomorrow, okay? It's late, and this feels like a conversation we should have in person. Okay, Carter agreed. Good night, Layla. Good night, Carter. As he hung up, Carter realized that he'd never felt this way before. This mixture of certainty and uncertainty, of fear and hope. He knew what he wanted, Layla and Zoe in his life, not just as a casual relationship but as something more permanent. But he also knew the obstacles they faced were real. Different worlds indeed. The question was, could those worlds truly come together or would they inevitably pull apart? The following week, Carter found himself sitting in a folding chair in the gymnasium of Bright Futures Academy, surrounded by parents and teachers waiting for the student art show to begin. He felt conspicuously out of place in his designer suit among the casually dressed families, but he'd come straight from a board meeting. Layla sat beside him, beautiful in a simple sundress, her hand occasionally brushing against his. They hadn't fully resolved their conversation from the night of the gala, but they'd agreed to keep moving forward, one day at a time. Thank you for coming, Layla said softly as they waited for the show to start. It means the world to Zoe. I wouldn't have missed it, Carter replied honestly. The lights dimmed and a teacher stepped forward to introduce the art show. One by one, students came onto the small stage to present their artwork and explain their inspiration. When it was Zoe's turn, Carter felt an unexpected surge of pride. She walked confidently to the center of the stage, holding a large canvas. My painting is called My Family, she announced in a clear voice. It shows the people I love most in the world. She turned the canvas around and Carter's breath caught. Zoe had painted 3 figures holding hands in front of a house. A woman with dark curly hair, a small girl with pigtails and a tall man in a suit. This is my mom, Zoe explained, pointing. She's the strongest, bravest person ever. And this is me. And this, she pointed to the man in the suit, is Carter. He's my mom's special friend who takes us to the park and helps me with art even though he's not very good at drawing. A ripple of laughter went through the audience. Carter sat frozen, overwhelmed by emotion. Beside him, Layla had gone very still. My dad is in heaven, Zoe continued matter-of-factly, but Mom says he's always watching over us. And now we have Carter too, so our family is growing. Thank you. As Zoe left the stage to polite applause, Carter turned to Layla, who looked as stunned as he felt. Layla, I had no idea, she whispered. I didn't know she was going to do that. I'm so sorry if it made you uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? Carter repeated, taking her hand firmly in his. Layla, that was the greatest honor anyone has ever given me. Tears welled in Layla's eyes. She's getting attached to you. I was afraid of this. I'm attached to her too, Carter said simply. And to you. Before Layla could respond, the art show ended, and children began rushing to find their parents. Zoe appeared, beaming with pride, her painting clutched to her chest. Did you like it? She asked eagerly, looking at Carter. Did you see you were in it? Carter knelt down to her level, his heart full. I loved it, Zoe. It's the most beautiful painting I've ever seen. Can we hang it at your house? She asked innocently. So you can see it every day? Carter glanced at Layla, whose expression was a mixture of emotions he couldn't quite read. I think that's up to your mom, sweetheart. Layla smoothed Zoe's hair, buying herself time to respond. We'll see, baby. But I'm sure Carter would love a photo of it for now. Zoe seemed satisfied with this answer and was soon distracted by her teacher calling her to help clean up the art supplies. As she ran off, Carter stood, still holding Layla's hand. We need to talk about this, Layla said quietly. About what's happening here. I know, Carter agreed. But not here. They collected Zoe and her artwork and made their way to the parking lot. Carter had driven separately, having come from work. Can I come over later? He asked as they reached Layla's van. After Zoe's in bed? Layla nodded. Yes. We definitely need to talk. The look they shared was heavy with unspoken words and feelings. Whatever happened next would change things between them, for better or worse remained to be seen. Later that night, after Zoe was asleep, Layla waited nervously for Carter's arrival. She changed into jeans and a comfortable sweater, made coffee, and was pacing her small living room when the soft knock came at the door. Carter had changed too into more casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down shirt. It still looked expensive, but at least he wasn't in a suit. He handed her a small gift bag as he entered. "What's this?" she asked, taking it. "Open it," he encouraged. Inside was a framed photo of Zoe's painting, perfectly captured and beautifully framed. "How did you?" "I asked her teacher if I could take a quick photo after the show," Carter explained. "And I know someone who does rush framing jobs." "Of course you do," Layla said with a small smile, setting the frame on her coffee table. "It's perfect. Thank you." They sat on the couch, the silence between them both comfortable and tense at the same time. Finally Layla spoke. "Carter, what are we doing?" "Really?" He took her hand, his expression serious. "I'm falling in love with you, Layla. And with Zoe. I think you know that." Layla's heart raced at his words. "It's too fast. We've only known each other a few months." "Sometimes you just know," Carter said simply. "I've never felt this way before, like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be when I'm with you too." "And what about the rest of it?" Layla asked. "Your company, your social obligations, your mother who I'm sure would be horrified at the idea of her son dating someone like me?" "None of that matters if I'm not happy," Carter insisted. "And I'm happy with you. Happier than I've been in years." "It's not that simple," Layla sighed. "You saw Zoe's painting. She's already thinking of you as family. What happens if this doesn't work out? She's already lost one important man in her life. I can't let her get hurt again." Carter's expression grew even more serious. "I would never hurt Zoe intentionally. Or you. But I understand your concern. All I'm asking is that we keep moving forward. Together. See where this leads." "And what about your world? Those galas and business dinners and society events?" Layla asked. "Do you expect me to fit into all that?" "Only if you want to," Carter said. "I don't care about any of that. But..." He hesitated. "Would you be willing to try? Just once? To see if it's as terrible as you imagine?" Layla raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you asking?" "There's another charity event next month. More low-key than the gala. Would you come with me? As my date?" Carter asked, his eyes hopeful. "I'd like the people in my life to meet the woman who's changed it so completely." Layla felt a flutter of panic at the thought. "Carter, I don't have anything to wear to something like that. I wouldn't know how to act or what to say. I'd embarrass you." "You could never embarrass me," Carter said firmly. "And as for what to wear, let me help with that. Please?" Layla wanted to refuse, to keep their relationship safely contained within the boundaries she understood. But looking at Carter's earnest expression, she found herself nodding. "Okay. One event. But if it's a disaster, you can't say I didn't warn you." Carter's face lit up with a smile. "It won't be a disaster. And even if it is, we'll face it together." He leaned in and kissed her softly, and Layla felt herself responding, the warmth of his lips against hers sending a thrill through her body. When they pulled apart, both were slightly breathless. "I should go," Carter said reluctantly. "It's getting late." Layla nodded, walking him to the door. Before he left, Carter turned to her once more. "I meant what I said, Layla. I'm falling in love with you. Both of you. Whatever challenges come with that, we'll figure them out." After he was gone, Layla stood at the door for a long moment, her fingers touching her lips where his had been. She was falling in love too, as terrifying as that was to admit. But could love really be enough to bridge the vast differences between their worlds? She didn't know. But like Carter, she was willing to find out. "Mommy, you look like a princess." Zoe gasped as Layla emerged from her bedroom in the gown Carter had helped her select for the charity event. The dress was midnight blue, simple but elegant, highlighting Layla's natural beauty without trying to make her into someone she wasn't. Carter had insisted on paying for it, despite her protests, arguing that he was the one dragging her to this event in the first place. "Do I look okay?" Layla asked nervously, smoothing the unfamiliar fabric. "Not too much." "You look beautiful," Mrs. Garcia, their elderly neighbor who was watching Zoe for the evening, assured her. "That young man of yours won't be able to take his eyes off you." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Zoe ran to answer it, revealing Carter in a tuxedo, holding a small bouquet of flowers. His eyes widened appreciatively as he took in Layla's appearance. You look stunning, he said softly. You clean up pretty well yourself, Layla replied, trying to hide her nervousness with humor. Carter handed her the flowers, not roses but her favorite lilies. Another small detail he'd remembered from their conversations. These are for you. And these, he produced a small gift bag, are for the artist of the house. Zoe took the bag eagerly, pulling out a set of professional quality colored pencils. Wow. Real artist pencils. Thank you, Carter. You're welcome, Zoe. I expect a masterpiece when I get back, he teased. After saying goodbye to Zoe and thanking Mrs. Garcia, they headed down to where Carter's car waited. As he opened the door for her, Layla took a deep breath. I'm nervous, she admitted. I've never been to anything like this. Carter took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. Just be yourself. That's who I want by my side tonight. The event was being held at the city's art museum, which had been transformed with elegant lighting and floral arrangements. As they walked in, Layla felt eyes turning toward them, or more specifically toward Carter. Carter Reed. A woman in her 60s approached, air-kissing Carter's cheeks. I was beginning to think you weren't coming. I wouldn't miss it, Mrs. Whitmore, Carter replied politely. This is Layla Thompson. Layla, this is Elizabeth Whitmore, one of my mother's oldest friends and the chairwoman of tonight's event. Lovely to meet you, dear, Mrs. Whitmore said, studying Layla with undisguised curiosity. Carter rarely brings dates to these functions. You must be special. She is, Carter said firmly, placing a supportive hand on Layla's lower back. As they moved through the crowd, Carter introduced Layla to dozens of people, business associates, friends, charity board members. She did her best to remember names and smile at the right moments, but it was overwhelming. The wealth in the room was staggering, from the designer clothes to the casual mentions of vacation homes and private jets. You're doing great, Carter whispered as they momentarily found themselves alone. How are you feeling? Like I'm in a foreign country without a phrasebook, Layla admitted. But I'm okay. Really? Before Carter could respond, a familiar voice called his name. Carter. There you are. Melissa Patterson approached, stunning in a designer gown, her eyes quickly assessing Layla before dismissing her. I've been looking for you. Your mother wants to introduce you to Senator Williams. Melissa, Carter nodded coolly. You remember Layla Thompson? Vaguely, Melissa replied with a thin smile. The delivery person, right? How unexpected to see you here. Layla felt her cheeks warm at the obvious condescension, but before she could respond, another voice joined the conversation. Carter, darling, there you are. An elegant older woman approached, her resemblance to Carter unmistakable. His mother. Senator Williams is eager to discuss the downtown project with you. Oh, you have company. Her eyes fell on Layla, taking in her appearance with a single evaluating glance. I don't believe we've met. Mother, this is Layla Thompson, Carter said, his voice steady. Layla, my mother, Eleanor Reed. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Reed, Layla said politely, extending her hand. Eleanor took it briefly, her smile not reaching her eyes. How lovely. And how did you meet my son, Miss Thompson? I delivered a package to his office, Layla replied honestly, refusing to be ashamed of her job. Eleanor's eyebrows rose slightly. How serendipitous. Carter, the senator is waiting. I'm sure Miss Thompson won't mind if we steal you away for a moment. Carter looked at Layla questioningly. She nodded. Go ahead. I'll be fine. I'll just be a few minutes, he promised, squeezing her hand before following his mother. Left alone with Melissa, Layla braced herself for more condescension. She wasn't disappointed. You're wasting your time, you know, Melissa said, sipping her champagne. Carter may be going through some kind of phase, but eventually he'll remember who he is and where he belongs. And where's that? Layla asked, keeping her voice even. Here. In this world. With people like us. Melissa gestured around the room. Not with a delivery driver from the wrong side of town, no matter how pretty she might be. Layla felt anger rising but refused to show it. I think that's for Carter to decide, don't you? Melissa laughed softly. Oh honey. You really don't understand how this works, do you? People like Carter Reed don't end up with people like you. It's just not done. Perhaps you don't know Carter as well as you think you do, Layla suggested. Melissa's eyes narrowed. I've known him for years. We move in the same circles, understand the same pressures and obligations. We speak the same language. Can you say the same? Before Layla could respond, she felt a hand on her arm. Carter had returned, his expression darkening as he took in the tension between the two women. "Everything okay here?" he asked. "Perfectly fine," Melissa said smoothly. "Just getting to know Layla a little better. If you'll excuse me, I see someone I need to speak with." As she glided away, Carter turned to Layla. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing I couldn't handle," Layla assured him, though her confidence had been shaken. "How was the senator?" "Boring," Carter said dismissively. "I'm sorry for leaving you with Melissa. She can be difficult." "She was just marking her territory," Layla said with a small smile. "I get it. You two have history?" "Nothing serious," Carter shrugged. "We've dated on and off over the years, but it was never anything meaningful. At least not to me." The evening continued, a blur of introductions, small talk, and surreptitious glances. Layla did her best to fit in, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing a part in a play where everyone else knew the script but her. Finally, after what felt like hours, Carter leaned in close. "Want to get out of here?" "God, yes," Layla breathed, relief washing over her. They said their goodbyes, accepting compliments on Layla's dress and Carter's downtown project with equal grace. In the car, Layla finally relaxed, slipping off her heels with a sigh of relief. "So," Carter asked as they drove, "how bad was it?" Layla laughed softly. "Not as terrible as I feared, but not something I'd want to do every weekend either." "Fair enough," Carter nodded. "You were amazing, you know. Everyone was impressed." "With you maybe," Layla said. "To them, I was just some curiosity you brought along." "Your mother barely looked at me." Carter sighed. "My mother is set in her ways. She'll come around once she gets to know you." "Will she?" Layla looked out the window at the passing city lights. "Your friend Melissa seems to think I'm just a phase you're going through." Carter's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Melissa doesn't know what she's talking about." "Doesn't she?" Layla turned to face him. "Carter, tonight made it very clear just how different our worlds are. Those people, that lifestyle, it's not me. It never will be." "I'm not asking you to become someone you're not," Carter insisted. "I love you for who you are." The words hung in the air between them. It wasn't the first time he'd told her he was falling in love, but it was the first time he'd stated it so directly, so definitively. "You think you do," Layla said softly. "But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you get tired of explaining to your friends why you're dating a delivery driver? When your mother starts pressuring you to find someone suitable?" Carter pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face her fully. "I love you, Layla Thompson. Not as a novelty or a rebellion or a phase. I love your strength, your honesty, your dedication to Zoe. I love the way you look at the world, the way you've made me see things differently." Layla felt tears threatening. "I love you too," she whispered. "That's why this scares me so much. Because when it ends—" "Who says it has to end?" Carter interrupted, taking her hands in his. "Yes, we come from different worlds. Yes, there will be challenges. But I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Layla looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. "I want to believe that." "Then believe it," Carter said simply. "One day at a time, remember? That's what we agreed." Layla nodded, squeezing his hands. "One day at a time." Carter leaned across and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and reassurance. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Now," Carter said, starting the car again, "what do you say we go pick up Zoe and get ice cream? I need something normal after all that fancy finger food." Layla laughed, feeling the tension drain away. "Ice cream sounds perfect." As they drove toward her apartment, Layla found herself hoping, against all logical reasoning, that maybe, just maybe, love really could be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. 6 months had passed since Layla first delivered a package to Carter Reed's office and accidentally dropped Zoe's paper heart. 6 months of cautious dating, of gradually merging their vastly different lives, of falling deeper in love despite the obstacles. Today, Layla stood in the empty living room of her apartment, surrounded by packed boxes. After years in this small space, she and Zoe were moving, not to Carter's penthouse as he had initially suggested, but to a comfortable house in a good neighborhood halfway between Zoe's school and Carter's office. "Mommy, are the movers coming soon?" Zoe asked, bouncing with excitement. At 8 years old now, she had embraced the idea of moving with typical childlike adaptability. "Soon, baby," Layla assured her. "Why don't you make sure your special treasures box is ready? We'll take that in our car." As Zoe ran off to check her most precious possessions, Layla walked through the apartment one last time. So many memories here, hard times, yes, but good ones too. This had been their safe haven after Michael died, the place where she had raised Zoe alone, where they had built their little family of two. And now they were expanding that family to include Carter. Not through marriage, not yet, though they had discussed it. For now this was the right step. A new home chosen together where they could create new memories. The sound of a key in the lock announced Carter's arrival. He'd insisted on having his own key months ago, wanting to be able to come and go freely, to be part of their daily lives. "Ready for the big day?" he asked, pulling Layla into a hug. "Almost," she said, leaning into his embrace. "Just saying goodbye to this place." Carter looked around the small apartment with respect. "It's been a good home for you too." "It has," Layla agreed. "But I'm ready for our new one." Carter smiled at the word, our, a simple pronoun that meant everything. Over the past months, they had carefully navigated the integration of their lives. Carter had cut back on unnecessary social obligations to spend more time with Layla and Zoe. Layla had left Elite Express for a management position at a logistics company, a job Carter had helped her find, but that she had earned entirely on her own merits. They had faced obstacles, of course. Eleanor Reed had been cold toward Layla at first, clearly disapproving of her son's choice. But Zoe, with her childlike charm, had gradually won over the formidable woman. It was hard even for Eleanor to resist a child who looked at her with such open curiosity and called her Ms. Eleanor with such politeness. Melissa and others in Carter's social circle had eventually realized that Layla wasn't going anywhere and had adjusted their behavior accordingly. Some genuinely welcomed her, impressed by her intelligence and straightforward manner. Others merely tolerated her, but Layla found she didn't much care. The opinions that mattered were those of the people she loved. "Carter." Zoe came racing back into the living room. "Is our new house ready? Did you make sure my room is painted purple like you promised?" "Purple walls, purple curtains, even purple door handles," Carter confirmed solemnly. "It's so purple I think I turned purple just looking at it." Zoe giggled, throwing her arms around his waist. "You're silly." The relationship between Carter and Zoe had blossomed naturally. He never tried to replace Michael in her life. Both he and Layla made sure Zoe's father remained a sacred presence, his memory honored and preserved. But Carter had found his own place in Zoe's heart, as a friend, a mentor, and increasingly a father figure. The doorbell rang, the movers had arrived. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity as boxes and furniture were loaded onto the truck. Finally, the apartment was empty except for the three of them and Zoe's treasures box. "Ready?" Carter asked, taking Layla's hand. She nodded, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and excitement. "Ready." They drove to the new house in Carter's car, Zoe chattering excitedly from the back seat about her plans for her new room and the garden and the treehouse Carter had promised to help her build. When they arrived, the moving truck was already there, the crew waiting for instructions. The house was beautiful, not ostentatious, but spacious and welcoming, with a large yard and plenty of room for all of them. "I still think it's too much," Layla murmured to Carter as the movers began unloading their things. "It's just right," Carter insisted. "Not too big, not too small. Perfect for the three of us." As they directed the movers where to place furniture and boxes, Layla couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. A year ago she would never have imagined this life, a beautiful home, a job she enjoyed, and a man who loved her and her daughter with his whole heart. Once the movers had finished and left, the three of them stood in the living room, surrounded by boxes but together. "We're home," Carter said, putting his arms around both of them. "Home," Zoe echoed happily, leaning into his side. Layla felt peace wash over her. "Yes, we're home." That evening, after a dinner of pizza ordered in and eaten picnic-style on the floor, Zoe's choice, they put Zoe to bed in her new room. She fell asleep almost immediately, surrounded by her familiar stuffed animals, exhausted from the excitement of the day. Carter and Layla retreated to the back porch, where they sat on the swing, looking out at their new backyard in the gathering twilight. "Happy?" Carter asked, his arm around Layla's shoulders. "Very," she said, leaning against him. "It's all happened so fast though. Sometimes I still can't believe it." "Which part? That you're dating a billionaire, or that said billionaire turned out to be not such a jerk after all?" Carter teased. Layla laughed. "Both. Remember how rude you were that first day?" "I was terrible," Carter admitted. "Thank God you dropped that paper heart, or I might never have seen you again." Layla reached into her pocket and pulled out the now-worn paper heart that Zoe had made so long ago. She still carried it with her, a reminder of where their journey had begun. "It really did have love magic in it," she said softly. "Just like Zoe said." Carter took the heart gently, examining it in the fading light. "We should frame this." Put it somewhere special in our new home. I'd like that, Layla agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the first stars appeared in the evening sky. I have something for you, Carter said finally, reaching into his pocket. I was going to wait, but I don't want to wait anymore. He pulled out a small velvet box and Layla's breath caught. Carter. Just listen, he said, taking her hand. I know we agreed to take things one step at a time, and moving in together was already a big step. I'm not trying to rush you. He opened the box, revealing a beautiful but not ostentatious diamond ring. This isn't a demand or an expectation. It's a promise. A promise that whenever you're ready, whether that's next month, next year, or 5 years from now, I'll be here loving you and Zoe, building this life with you. Tears filled Layla's eyes as she looked at the ring, then up at Carter's face, so different now from the cold businessman she'd first met. His eyes were warm, filled with love and hope and a vulnerability he showed only to her. Ask me, she whispered. Carter's eyes widened slightly. Are you sure? Layla nodded. I'm sure. Carter slid off the swing onto one knee, still holding her hand. Layla Thompson, you changed my life the moment you walked into my office. You showed me what real strength looks like, what love can be, what truly matters in this world. Will you marry me? Layla didn't hesitate. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Carter slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling through tears. Zoe is going to be so excited, Layla laughed. She's been dropping hints for months. I know, Carter grinned. She actually helped me pick out the ring. Made me promise not to tell you. She knew. Layla gasped. That little schemer. She's got good taste, Carter said, looking at the ring now sparkling on Layla's finger. Said you'd like something pretty but not too fancy. Layla shook her head in amazement. She knows me well. You both do. As night fell around their new home, they stayed on the porch talking about their future together. Not just the wedding but all the life they would build, the memories they would create, the family they had become. Later, as they lay in bed in their new room, Layla rested her head on Carter's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. What are you thinking? He asked, stroking her hair. I'm thinking about that paper heart, she said softly. How something so small and simple could lead to all this. It wasn't just the heart, Carter said. It was you, your courage, your honesty, the way you stood up to me. You were the first person in years to see me, the real me, not just the billionaire CEO. And you were the first person since Michael to see me as more than just a struggling single mom, Layla replied. You saw me. I still see you, Carter whispered. And I'll keep seeing you every day for the rest of our lives. Layla tilted her face up to kiss him, feeling the certainty of his promise in the tenderness of his lips. They had crossed worlds to find each other, the wealthy businessman and the hardworking delivery driver. And in doing so, had created a new world entirely their own. A world built on love, understanding, and the simple magic of a child's paper heart.